On the table here, you see my 1937 Singer 1589. When it's in the treadle, it's an 88. When it's got a hand crank on it, like it does now, it's an 89. And what I'm going to talk about today is something I mentioned briefly yesterday, note cards and labels. Now yesterday I was talking about Yarka pastels on fabric, and what you see on the machine right now is a label. And these are good for not only labeling quilts or knitting or anything you make yourself, a scarf, but I'm going to be using them as little thank you notes. I don't know if you remember, many years ago people used to get calling cards made, and when you went to visit someone, if they weren't home, you left your calling card. This is a little bit along those lines. I happen to sell one of my hand-painted needlepoint canvases, and when I shipped it, I included one of these on the canvas with just thank you written on it. And they just make a nicer touch than a business card or a piece of scrap paper, or they also save trees. By using fabric, they save trees. Now, I have the Singer Automatic Zigzagger on there, and I'm using the hard-to-find set 4 of the Zigzagger cams, which include the curved mending, the 3-step, the solid scallop, and the open scallop. And I have the solid scallop on there now, and what you need is muslin, and you want to keep your muslin in 2 layers. Labels you cut to 2.5 by 3 inches, and note cards you cut 2 layers of fabric to 4 by 6. Now 4 by 6 note card will fit in the average greeting card envelope, and there are quite a few places where you can buy the envelopes alone, or if you go and buy a card for someone and you want to send a card, you can make a more personal greeting and slip it in the card, as I mentioned yesterday. And then you would like some pinking shears, because it really gives a pretty effect to anything you're doing, a more finished effect. So it's very easy. 2.5 by 3 for the labels, 2 layers, and 4 by 6 for note cards or note card inserts. A vintage or antique Singer machine, this is what I'm using. You can do it with a modern machine and put a zigzag or one of their specialty stitches around the edge. Doesn't take long at all to sit down and do 10 or 15 of these, and so then you have them so that when the opportunity comes up, you just write thank you or bless you or get well soon. You can communicate with people with something that shows that you took a little effort to do so. So let's just see how this works with a hand crank. Now the 1588 is a little bit different than the 1591 when you have the zigzagger on, but not only because of the hand crank. Even though they're very similar, it's just a slightly different machine. And the 1591, of course, is electric and goes much faster, but this is actually relaxing. And the main issue is just making sure, after you've made sure that your tension and your thread are correct and everything, making sure that your fabric flows through the zigzagger correctly. And then this machine, being from 1937, has reverse. You just back up, pull this out, and I'm going to trim this because the two pieces were slightly different sizes. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this as part of my videos is I was shopping the other day and I saw a lot of new fangled machines. Isn't that pretty? Just a little homemade label. One of the brand names is Crycut, and I hadn't really looked into it before, but very expensive, very expensive. And I think it's a die cutting machine, which is a great idea. And that would give you a shape or many shapes, but you know, I don't know, maybe my family was different growing up. We just had this simpler way of doing things. So this is why both my mother and my grandmother had pinking shears, and they did this with paper, they did it with fabric, and there was something else I was noticing the other day with something that my grandmother had that was vintage, and it's just a reminder of, oh yeah, that's how people used to do things. So now, with these die cut machines that can run you into the thousands of dollars, you also have to think of how many boxes of equipment you need when this can do the same thing. So again, these can be any kind of label or thank you card. The 4x6, you can draw on them, you can use ink, you can paint, you can even make them, I think it's 2.5 by 3.5, and make them art ACO cards. So there's an awful lot you can do with muslin, pinking shears, an old Singer, and an automatic zigzagger to make note cards and labels.